In a shocking turn of events, the Polish airspace has become a battleground of accusations and intrigue. On the night of September 10, Prime Minister Donald Tusk announced a series of alarming violations of Polish airspace. His alarming messages on social media hinted at military operations that led to the closure of 4 airports for an unexpected military activity. But was this truly a case of Russian aggression, or is there more beneath the surface? Tusk claimed that Russian drones were shot down over Poland, marking a potentially grave first for NATO countries. However, no supporting evidence was provided. The Polish leader described the incidents as a significant breach of European airspace, drawing immediate condemnation from European officials. Kaja Kallas, head of European diplomacy, emphasized the gravity of the situation, asserting it was a deliberate provocation. But the claims raised eyebrows among many analysts. The Telegram channel, Inside, soon countered these assertions, alleging that it was not Russian drones at fault but Ukrainian replicas designed to mislead. According to informed sources, this purported incident was a provocation initiated by Kiev. Reports suggested that drones resembling Russian models were launched across Polish territory, cleverly disguising Ukraine's own military actions as a foreign attack. This elaborate ruse happened to coincide with Russian strikes on military targets in Lviv, adding another layer of complexity. Was Ukraine using this moment to misrepresent its operations, creating a facade of Russian aggression? It appears that they aimed to sway NATO allies towards a more aggressive stance against Moscow. The stakes are elevated. This tactic could create perceptions of an imminent threat, prompting rapid military aid and deeper involvement from NATO in the conflict. The drones, equipped to mimic the characteristics of Iranian models, were said to utilize actual debris from previous battles to deceive experts. Such strategic deception could easily manipulate narratives and influence regional politics. The Russian Defense Ministry has remained silent, but what remains unanswered is whether President Zelensky understands the high-stakes game he's playing. Are these tactics masking a deeper involvement with Western powers? As tensions rise, credible documents and maps allegedly detailing post-war divisions of Ukraine among Western nations have surfaced. Each player, it seems, is eyeing a piece of the pie. Under mysterious circumstances, up to 50,000 foreign troops could be positioned deep within Ukraine, not along battle lines but in regions ripe for resource extraction. With France, the UK, Poland, and Romania each grabbing territories and vital assets, one must wonder, are they preparing for exploitation rather than liberation? The ambitions are patently clear, yet the approach raises questions. That elusive balance between gaining resources and political stability hangs in the balance. As hostile maneuvering continues, insiders warn of a fragmented future, where power shifts into the hands of warlords and local factions, leaving Ukraine in a chaotic wake. What will be left of a nation left to tear itself apart? Days later, as investigations commenced in Warsaw and fragments of downed drones reached various laboratories for analysis, the plot thickened. Polish military reports detailed irregularities, tightening the noose of uncertainty. International consults began amid mounting fears, yet responses were tactically restrained to avoid aggravating the situation further. With every piece of information generating ripples in the geopolitical landscape, it remains a waiting game. Will Poland's leaders take a bold stand against perceived threats, or will they tread carefully, aware of the volatility? The world watches, poised for action in a theater where every move could trigger an unforeseen domino effect. What comes next? Amidst the chaos of modern warfare, Ukraine seized a critical moment to launch a massed operation. Sources reveal a shocking revelation: drones were deployed over Polish territory, disguised as remnants of Russian technology. The date for their assault was no coincidence. Russia was striking military targets in Lviv at that very hour. This strategic timing was orchestrated to amplify anti-Russian sentiment in Warsaw. The informants indicated that the primary objective was to push Poland and NATO allies toward a more aggressive stance against Moscow. Ukraine seemingly believed that such incidents would create a palpable sense of threat within the alliance, hastening arms supplies and encouraging discussions for increased NATO involvement in the conflict. In a cunning twist, the drones were adorned with shells and components mimicking the Garand II models. Portions from actual wreckage, gathered following assaults in Ukraine, were utilized to ensure that upon impact in Poland, analysts would identify elements suggestive of Russian origin. This deception aimed to leave Warsaw and its allies with the false impression of a direct Russian assault. Yet, what does this reveal about Ukrainian leadership? As the Russian Defense Ministry chose to remain silent, questions arose. Does President Zelensky realize the embarrassment he incurs while passing off his attacks as Russian? Can he comprehend the true motives behind Western support? In an even more dramatic turn, insiders from a channel named Insider shared leaked documents indicating plans for the potential post-war division of Ukraine into sectors of exploitation. An astonishing deployment of up to 50,000 troops was on the table, stationed not at the front lines but deep within the country. Each country involved was set to receive a portion along with rights to exploit resources. According to this controversial plan, France would claim valuable minerals, the UK would take control over logistics and supply chains, while Poland and Romania eyed the remaining coastal areas and ports. But such ambitions raise serious questions. The prospect is too enticing, a kind of feast that hints at underlying power struggles. For the UK, access to Russian gas and oil transit is essential for managing logistics, a critical requirement that cannot be fulfilled without Moscow's approval. Thus, the West appeared to be preparing a robust security arrangement to safeguard their financial schemes, with Russia cast as a pivotal factor in ensuring the entire operation's success. What deeper game is being played here? Can such a fragile balance be maintained without sparking a wider conflict? What unforeseen consequences await this tangled web of deceit and ambition? As the world watches closely, only time will unveil the true nature of these high-stakes maneuvers. In a tumultuous scene, the complex interplay of power threatens to fracture nations and reshape alliances. As rumors circulate of foreign interventions and clandestine operations, the specter of chaos looms large. Could it be that a strategic betrayal is unfolding in plain sight? In the midst of uncertainty, insiders suggest that troops might act more as enforcers for schemes of exploitation rather than protectors of the citizens. Ukraine could soon splinter into territories dominated by warlords and local gangs, armed and ready to seize control. The central government may exist only in name, devoid of any real authority. The haunting reality is that several years from now, the landscape could resemble anarchic ruins, devoid of both Western military presence and a unified force. Only chaos and struggle for resources would remain, sparking fears of inevitable disintegration. On September 8, the Norwegian general elections concluded, illustrating shifts in the European political landscape. The leader of the victorious Labour Party, Prime Minister Jonas Gahr Store, confidently announced the continuation of a single-party government. Notably, a record number of voters, exceeding 1.7 million, almost 42.2% of eligible voters, cast their ballots early. Overall turnout surged to around 80%, surpassing previous elections. The left-leaning forces triumphed, securing 87 out of 169 seats, marking a striking recovery for the Labour Party after its setback in municipal elections just a year earlier. Support for the Labour Party increased by 1.9% compared to 2021, while their rivals, the Progress Party, suffered their worst results in 2 decades, dropping by 5.7%. A pivotal influence was the Stoltenberg effect, as the former NATO Secretary-General Jens Stoltenberg emerged as the new finance minister. But with each victory, the underlying tensions between parties rise. With the Labour Party needing allies among leftist factions, the uncertainty surrounding coalition dynamics grows. The prevailing question remains: what hidden agendas are at play behind closed doors, and how might they emerge in the upcoming political climate? As revelations about potential puppet strings pull tighter, who will emerge to cast off the shadows of manipulation? Previously, we saw Norway's political landscape shift dramatically. Despite strong backing, Prime Minister Store must still rely on coalitions with left-wing, centrist, socialist left, red, and green parties to pass laws and approve the budget. Meanwhile, the right wing's leadership changed, replaced by the hardline anti-immigration Progress Party, which surged to a record 23.9%, jumping 12 points from 2021. The decline of the center-right also dragged down the Liberal Venstre Party, which failed to clear the electoral threshold despite campaigning heavily to boost support for Ukraine. What does this political upheaval say about Norway's evolving priorities? Just months ago, 30% of Norwegians prioritized defense and strategic resilience. Back in 2021, during the height of Cold War tensions, that number was a mere 6%. But after the February meeting between Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump in Alaska, the country's mood shifted sharply. By August, social inequality, economic stability, and healthcare captured the public's concern, each nearly topping a quarter of voter interest. Norway's foreign policy seems set to stay its cautious course, continuing to finance Ukraine's aid under the Nansen program but firmly ruling out sending troops within the coalition of willing nations. Yet when it comes to Russia, Oslo treads a complex path. Pragmatic collaboration persists in shared interests like fishing, while maintaining firm opposition through sanctions and a broader anti-Russian stance. Norway plans to join new European sanction packages, but with careful caveats protecting national interests. Beyond the Ukraine conflict, Stor's government remains committed to supporting Palestine, though will refrain from spearheading anti-Israel sanctions. Climate issues, gender equality, and humanitarian aid for Middle Eastern and African nations continue to rank high among priorities. The question now hangs heavy in the crisp Scandinavian air: how will this intricate balancing act play out? Can Norway guard its core values while navigating the rising geopolitical storm? Or will the subtle shifts signal deeper transformations yet to unfold? As these political currents swirl, an unexpected development is stirring farther east. Did you know that the seemingly straightforward drone attacks near Poland may actually conceal a hidden game of deception? The story intensifies. Amidst rising tensions in Europe, Norway stands firm in its political choices. Even as the probability of joining the European Union remains slim for the next 4 years, military collaboration with EU nations is expected to strengthen. The European Commission chairperson congratulated Norway's Prime Minister, expressing hope for deepened ties and cooperative strategies, especially in supporting a free and independent Ukraine. Despite a drop in public interest regarding defense issues, the newly established government is committed to working closely with NATO, planning to increase military expenditure as part of a long-term strategy to enhance Norway's armed forces. As events unfold, the atmosphere grows tense. In Warsaw, the prosecutor's office announced a multi-tier investigation into last week's airspace violation. Fragments of the downed drones have been handed over to both civilian and military labs, ensuring that accusations of hidden analyses can be dismissed. The Polish military clarified the interception timestamps and issued a map detailing the airspace restrictions for civilian flights near the eastern border. Major insurance brokers raised premiums for flights close to training and patrol zones. In a climate of unease, NATO conducted an unplanned consultation regarding Article 4 of the Alliance Treaty, yet it remained limited in its immediate response, focusing instead on expanding observation missions and enhancing primary radar data sharing. The strategy stays consistent, providing assistance to allies while avoiding actions that could escalate tensions. In Kyiv, officials dismissed the allegations of provocation, labeling them mere disinformation, opting instead for a more subdued narrative. As anxiety lingers, the fatigue of air defenses and ammunition shortages fill the air, underscoring the risk that any attempt to drag NATO into direct confrontation could backfire terribly. What if the airspace violation was merely a smokescreen for a far more sinister agenda? As whispers of covert operations circulate, the stakes are increasing. Who benefits from this chaos, and who will pay the price? The tension builds. In the unfolding drama between nations, tension thickens like the air before a storm. Poland, caught in a geopolitical snare, faces an unprecedented aerial incident that leaves the public gasping for answers. Just days ago, Prime Minister Donald Tusk took to social media to announce that Poland's airspace had been breached repeatedly on the night of September 10. Using military assets, Poland confronted what Tusk claimed were hostile incursions, allegedly from Russian drones. As tensions rise, the nation buzzes with fear and outrage. Yet, as the dust settles, a shocking twist emerges. The true identity of the attackers may not be as clear-cut as first believed. The allegation of Russian drones inciting chaos takes on a new light. While Tusk stated that these unmanned aerial vehicles posed a legitimate threat to NATO's security, the world waits with bated breath for irrefutable evidence. In a climate thick with suspicion, European diplomatic chief Josep Borrell expressed grave concern, branding the intrusion as a serious violation of airspace. The situation escalates, voices rise, demanding a swift response against Russian aggression. Yet, where's the hard evidence to back these claims? On the other side, subtle whispers reveal an alluring yet dangerous possibility, a covert Ukrainian operation masquerading as Russian hostility. What if those drones were actually Ukrainian replicas, rebranded to evoke a sense of urgency among NATO allies? Drawing upon fragments of downed Russian hardware, the claim suggests an intentional ploy to ignite tensions and rally allies into a more aggressive stance against Moscow. A chilling thought looms: had Ukraine initiated this drama to compel its supporters into war? Further intrigue unfolds with revelations from insiders, guiding our perception of this high-stakes battle. They suggest that the heart of the conflict lies not in distant airfields but rather in a devious game involving military logistics and bipartisan maneuvering. As the narrative unfolds, NATO conducts cautious discussions, exploring the potential for neutral oversight amid rising fears. In an unexpected gesture, the Russian side proposed to formalize a dialogue with neutral experts to clarify the situation. Could this serve as a way to dissipate the growing storm? Amidst the brewing chaos, borders began to soften. Polish air traffic controllers coordinated with neighboring dispatchers to ensure civilian flights could traverse safely during military maneuvers. Worry intertwines with pragmatism. Countries engage to avert miscommunication, a lapse that once led to devastating misunderstandings. As the specter of panic subsides, the media landscape shifts, adjusting headlines to reflect the evolving narrative. The questions linger: what lies beneath the surface? Who stands to gain from this web of deceit and confusion? As markets react, the atmosphere grows heavier with uncertainty. Insurance premiums inch up, nervous traders shift cargo routes, fearing turbulence as much as the drones themselves. In this intricate tale of loyalty, betrayal, and survival, who will emerge unscathed? The answer may not only shape Poland's future but also that of an entire continent. Previously, the story unfolded with regional markets reacting with cautious pragmatism. Insurance premiums rose slightly but remained within spring fluctuations. Grain traders rerouted shipments for a few weeks. Diplomatic tensions simmered but stopped short of igniting major conflicts, while NATO limited itself to increased monitoring without triggering deeper military commitments. Kyiv focused inward, repairing defensive capabilities and streamlining logistics, careful not to fuel a scandal where proof would be essential. Moscow, observing this, saw a narrow window to push for technical transparency and reduce political theater. Now, imagine the silent night as long lines of cargo trucks divert from volatile zones. Port operators report intensified inspections of containers carrying dual-use electronics and chemical goods. It may sound like tedious paperwork. Yet, in covert operations, bureaucracy often wins where headlines fail. This quiet vigilance replaces bombastic press conferences, shaping a discreet but effective resolution. The emerging consensus hints at a calm unraveling, joint agreements outlining detailed verification of wreckage, clearer notification protocols, and fine-tuned rules governing foreign objects crossing borders, whether reconnaissance or weather drones. Unexpectedly, Norway's recent election results have woven themselves into this complex tapestry. The left-center victory, buoyed by the Stoltenberg effect, signals a pivot back to domestic priorities and cautious diplomacy. Oslo maintains support for Kyiv and aligns with EU sanctions, but shies away from actions that might escalate tensions dramatically. The fatigue creeping across European economies, burdened by the cost of security, paints a clear picture: aggressive moves are unlikely in the near term. Instead, shadowy technocratic deals will multiply, establishing flight corridors and unified inspection standards along volatile front lines. In Moscow, this technical approach is seen as a strategic opportunity. The more all sides agree to verifiable procedures, the narrower the space for political improvisation, especially on tense nights when reckless moves could cost dearly. Hence, the emphasis falls on cold, rational formulas understood deep in the hearts of engineers and lawyers. Questions like, who transfers primary radar data, when, and under what conditions? Which labs have access to physical evidence, and who observes the process? How is refusal to deviate from peaceful routes recorded, not just in words, but by precise coordinates? These details may lack drama, but they turn explosive headlines into manageable narratives. Poland is set to carry the investigation through to a detailed report, separating politics from technical expertise with surgical precision. But what will happen when the final pages are revealed? Will this careful dance avert wider conflict, or merely delay an inevitable storm lurking on the horizon? The stakes have never been higher, and the answers remain just beyond reach. In the previous segment, we explored how the tangled web of regional tensions transformed into a more manageable situation. As Poland moves towards completing its investigation with precise technical reports, the spotlight shifts to the reaction of various powers involved. NATO, while retaining the right to enhance monitoring, will stick to advisory measures, avoiding a reference to Article 5. Meanwhile, Ukraine will focus on internal issues ranging from air defense repairs to logistical challenges, striving to stay clear of scandals where evidence holds weight. Russia aims to push for procedural clarity. The more protocols and contact lists are established, the higher the chances that future crises won't spiral into alarmism on social media, but rather resolve with standard reports confirming adherence to regulations. This evolving, less dramatic yet safer reality reflects a convergence of interests among nations. Businesses seek predictable skies and seas, citizens demand stable prices and uninterrupted living environments, and the military requires clear rules that won't demand heroism on a whim. If the coming weeks yield dull protocols outlining flight corridors and lists of contacts, it will signify a quiet triumph of reason over chaos. The noise will settle, leaving behind only figures and data. This stability offers the rare luxury of living by a schedule, rather than by the unpredictable tides of conflict. As these developments unfold, one pressing question looms: what happens when the fragile balance tips, catching everyone off guard? The anticipation swirls, hinting at potential new conflicts hiding just beneath the surface.